I was gonna say something about something.
Nice and vague.
Yeah, if I could remember more, I would say more words. I don't remember what they are, but I know it's one. I don't know. If it comes to me, I'll and it seems appropriate, I'll say something. Oh yeah, I remember what it is. Next week, I need to record 2 shows because the week after I'll be out of town.
No problem.
Yeah.
It's kind of nice when we have the 2 weeks in between. Like I've toyed with the idea of maybe we do one long show bi-weekly, sort of like the talk show.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
we've done this so long now on a weekly basis that I don't want to break that cycle.
This is the 150th episode.
It is.
We could end it right here and start over with something new.
we could.
That was a joke.
Maybe we'll have more conversations about that later.
Yeah. Yeah. 50 more episodes because we can only break it a multiple of 50. Now you have to do it at 199 or something.
Yeah. Or 201. Let everybody think that it's going on for a while and then this is,
Or 163 just because. So I was messing around with my computer, and I was going back and forth between my work computer and my personal computer, and my work one is a 16-inch, and I'm really pleased. I definitely made the right decision with the 14, and but I was just like picking it up, and I was like, it really reminded me of my old PowerBook. My first Apple computer that I bought was a PowerBook G4 with the 12-inch. Do you remember that?
So the 14-inch reminds you? I was thinking wasn't sure which one you were saying reminded you of which.
Yeah. The 14-inch M2 reminds me of the 12-inch PowerBook. And I was like, I wonder how, I got to thinking about it. I was like, the specs on that 12-inch might be not that dissimilar from the 14-inch because, Apple's considerably not, they're fitting more into less. And so,
right.
So I did look it up. And the PowerBook G4 12-inch was the one that I had. I think it was probably the same. They had 3 models of it, I think. 4 models. They had four iterations of it, and I don't expect that it changed at all. But the height on the the height on it. So the weight was on the M2 14-inch. It is why can't I see that? Because I wasn't looking at 3.5 pounds versus 4.6 pounds. So it's more than a pound lighter. So the 12-inch PowerBook is a pound heavier, which is that makes sense, I guess. Probably maybe battery. I don't know. But it is. I didn't know. I didn't know if you knew this, but the M2 Max is 0.1 pounds heavier than the M2 Pro.
I guess that makes sense. It seems like a big difference, though.
It does,
But then again, I mean, thinking about it's the entire.
I'm assuming
SoC
it's a heat sink.
Duplicated.
No, the Pro's not duplicated.
Oh, that's a good point.
The Max isn't duplicated. I was just thinking it would be heat sink. Maybe.
Well, the Max is basically 2 Pros, is it not?
No, that's the Ultra.
That's what I'm thinking of. Okay.
Yeah. The Ultra's 2. Is the Ultra 2? I don't know if the Ultra's 2 Pro. Well, I mean, I haven't really looked to see, and so I don't know if this is accurate or not. But I bet the Ultra is there's a version that's 2 Pros and a version that's 2 Maxes.
I might have to go look that up for.
Yeah, I think Max was a bad name because there's something after Max.
Well, yeah, I mean that's typical Apple naming.
Right. So more than a pound lighter. The height, the height was also surprised me. The height, I don't remember the PowerBook being that much thicker, but it was the PowerBook was 1.18 inches, and The 14 inches, 0.61 inches. The width is on the width on the MacBook on the 14 inches 12.31 and 10.9 on the PowerBook, and the depth is 8.71 on the MacBook Pro and 8.6 on the PowerBook. So pretty comparative specs.
Yeah, and also, I mean, there's a I'm struggling a bit with the way I would describe it, because there's a certain tangible aspect to it that's not necessarily captured in specs either, but just the way it feels in general. You know, if you think about the previous iteration MacBook Pros, where they just felt so thin and
yeah.
I know you know what I'm getting at, but I don't know how I would describe that. That more squarish thickness that these have in comparison feels more like the old PowerBooks.
Yes. Well, I have used. I mean, we've both had our hands on quite a few Apple computers in our day, just from repairing other people's computers. And I was just trying to think. I have, been inside of like every computer Apple's made, from the Intel transition to. I didn't get into it. I only opened up some PowerPC computers in training. Like, I never did any actual repair. I never did a repair on a PowerPC machine. But I did see someone putting one. One of the genius admins was putting together an iBook. I don't remember why, but I remember, and he's, it's like, why is he doing it? Anyway, but he was like, I got less than 10 screws left over. I'm good to go. Apparently that was a thing. If you had less than 10, you were good to go, because they had so many screws. So they were not great for repairing. But anyway, I picked it up out of my bag the other day, and I was like, this feels like the PowerBook. Like that, I had a 12-inch PowerBook for a couple of years, and I just picked it up, and I was like, ooh, yeah. Man, I was running Tiger on that thing.
I don't remember what the last OS I ran on a PowerBook was.
Well, the last one you could run was Leopard.
Yeah, but I think I made the transition to the MacBook before I changed OSs.
I would have expected you to.
I don't know. I'd have to go back and look at timelines and try to actually piece it together. But I vaguely seem to recall that I was running maybe Panther at the time that I made the transition to the MacBook Pro. Maybe it was maybe that was the transition. I don't know. Again, I'd have to go back and look.
I'm trying to think. I don't think Panther was available on the MacBook Pro. I think it was. I think they switched really quick, and it was Tiger.
It might have been. Part of what makes it so murky as well is at the same time I was with the credit union, and we were running an Xserve in addition to having, I think we had 4 Macs total deployed internally with different people and different configurations and all. So I have a tough time remembering what I was running versus what I was supporting.
I can understand that. I can definitely understand that. At the time when I first started using the Mac, I was using OS 8.6 on a pre-Steve Jobs Mac. It might have been a Performa. I think we've talked about this before. But I was supporting a bunch of G3 iMacs. I remember not liking the G4 iMac. Now I think it's like one of the coolest things. But
I would still like to get my hands on one just for display. I have a little bit of follow-up if we want to jump into that. So I haven't mentioned anything on the show about the first one, which is 3 or 4 weeks ago, I think it was, I noticed a slight oddity to my audio, where there was almost like a pop at the end, ever so slight distortion at the end of sentences kind of thing. And I thought it might have been because I had to rebuild everything in Audio Hijack, that I redid some things and had a couple of things that was not using before added into the chain.
Yeah, I remember you saying that.
And so I played with that last week when we recorded, and it didn't make a difference. And so I did some test recordings with changing some different things. I think it was a combination of slightly too high gain and a slightly bad connection on my audio interface as far as the mic connection goes. Because first couple of test recordings, I could duplicate it consistently, undid everything, made a couple of slight adjustments, and the audio sounded great on the test recordings afterwards. So
nice.
We'll see if this recording is good or if it rears its head again and I still need to continue to troubleshoot it. But I figured I would bring it as follow-up just to mention, in case there is somebody that happens to decide to listen and write in, that yes, I am aware that there has been a slight audio quality issue and I am working to address it.
I try to catch those, but I am behind on all podcasts.
I noticed it right after it happened, and I meant to go ahead and start troubleshooting it then, and other things came up. And it's not egregious enough to be a major problem. Some people might not even hear it. Like it's that kind of issue. And so I decided, all right, it's not bad. It's not like that background hum noise that we had for a bit that I didn't catch.
Yeah.
I'm not going to sweat too much about it. I'll try a few things here and there. And then after this last week, I decided, all right, I need to finally quit, hemming and hawing and procrastinating and just go ahead and troubleshoot it and see. And so I think I got it, and we'll find out.
Good.
And then my other piece of follow-up was that I actually did what I said I might do and look at the actual opinion in the Supreme Court case that we talked about briefly last week. And so I don't know if we want to go into a lot of detail or a little detail. As far as, I could probably talk more about it than I could have last week anyway. But I can also summarize it pretty succinctly, I think. So I will leave it to either a toss of the coin or your preference on how much detail you'd like.
Let's go for it.
All right. So I'll have multiple links that I'll put in the notes just for anyone who wants to actually, do any type of deep dive on it. But I think I understand why the analysis went the way it did last week. And I'm not going to say that I disagree now that I know more, because I think the analysis was still fairly spot on. But I think I grasp the nuance of why the court ruled the way it did at the end of the day. And so I'm going to try to do my best to explain that. Backing up a little bit, though, I want to just remind a couple of key points. The case was Counterman v. Colorado, and the general issue at play is that Counterman was convicted of stalking due to repeat attempts and repeat actions interjecting himself into the life of a woman who was a performer, to the point that she changed her routines, quit performing, started carrying a firearm because of concerns about the threats that she perceived she received. And under Colorado law, the requirement was met to prosecute as a result of those continued, I would call it harassment, but undesired messages.
That's harassment.
In Colorado, there was no requirement with the state law to have any level of intent or anything else behind it. It just had to be, on the recipient side, continued harassment would be a good way to put it. I know the links will have more detail, but that's the summarized version. And so Justice Kagan delivered the opinion for the court, and there were two parts to the opinion. One was questioning whether or not the First Amendment required proof that the defendant had some sort of understanding of the threatening nature of the statements, and two, what that standard would be, is the way it's broken down. With regard to the first piece, the court ruled that there had to be some sort of intent or some disregard for concerns about whether or not it would be perceived as threatening and still going along with that action. And it's because of the legal concept of mens rea, which says that there has to be criminal intent for a crime to be prosecuted. Some level of criminal intent is what I should say. There are, this is a Anglo-Saxon, I think it's said. It may be Anglo-American. That would make more sense. An Anglo-American legal concept. It is similar to concepts in other countries as well, but other countries don't specifically adopt this discipline. Most of the time it's just stated as some level of intent unless otherwise noted or allowed. But under this concept, there are three accepted levels. There's purposeful, knowledgeable, and recklessness. Purposeful means you know without a doubt you are deliberately intending to threaten someone in this example, or using this example. Like you are intentionally threatening someone and want it to be perceived as threatening. And that would be the most difficult to prove. The next would be knowledgeable, which would be you recognize that it could be a threat or that it would be probably or most likely deciphered as a threat, and choose to act anyway. And then recklessness would be an acknowledgement that someone might perceive it as threatening, but not being concerned with that perception, which is the least, it's the lowest classification of some level of intent under that legal framework. And I think
I'm nodding my head, yes.
I was going to say, it's been a long enough stretch. I should probably pause and make sure that all makes sense, or if there's any interjection before proceeding.
No, that all made sense. And for folks listening, they've got a pause button.
Fair enough. And so ultimately, what the ruling came down to was that true threats of violence, everyone agreed, are outside the bounds of the First Amendment's protection,
sure,
as they should be. A statement can absolutely count as a threat based solely on its objective content, but the dispute is whether the First Amendment nonetheless demands that the state, in a, quote, true threats case, end quote, prove that there's some level of awareness of the threatening nature of the communication. And that's where it gets tricky, because if you require some level of intent, you have to subjectively have that intent fall into the framework of mens rea within the context of the United States judicial system or legal system. And so that's why I say I think I can understand why the ruling came down the way it did after reading the opinion and doing some analysis and trying to kind of understand both the opinion piece that I referenced and the objective just ruling in its entirety. And I still think it's wrong. And the reason I say I think it's wrong is because there's not any reason that an exception could not be made to protect this level of harassment. But I do also understand that right now there theoretically is not an exception to that in order for a criminal case to proceed. And so I feel like it's in a logical, rational world, I would feel like that this would be a logical ruling with that particular lack of precedent. Here's where I say it's wrong, though, in that this court has already bucked precedent multiple times and decided to rewrite some level of legal application of the law. So why not do the same here? Especially when we're talking about a very clear long-term campaign of imposing oneself into another person's life undesirably.
Yeah. See, the problem right now is this. Step one is to form a functioning government, preferably an uncorrupt functioning government. That's step one. And so that's not to say that not everybody is off the rocker, but I mean, I get.
There's a lot.
I can understand the logic, but I don't. I think at some point there are folks that are. It's like you're living outside of reality, and this is. I think this is. I hope that it's not going to be more problematic than it is helpful, but what I suspect is that it will be more problematic than helpful.
You mean this particular ruling, or you mean
this particular
extent
ruling
of a non-functioning government? Okay,
Oh,
because both I could decide both that way.
This particular ruling.
This one to me. So I know last week we mentioned in the analysis piece that I had a real tough time figuring out how it could be ruled the way it was. So I at least now feel like I find a logical path toward this ruling.
Yeah, but doesn't mean it's okay.
But I still end up at the same point of it just feels horrifically wrong, which in my opinion means that it's absolutely wrong. Like if I have that gut feel based on my interpretation of someone else's analysis, and then I have the same gut feel after a fairly deep dive on the actual opinion and what the nuances mean, I don't know of a way that you're going to change my mind on it not being the wrong outcome. And not saying that it can't. I mean, there's certainly somebody that could that's more well-versed, or, I have a couple of friends who have worked in legal professions. Maybe I should bounce it off of them and get their take as well. But it just, I don't see where this is going to result in a positive outcome in any way, shape, fashion, or form.
Yeah, but I bet do you think we said that when State of Wyoming that passed State of Wyoming passed a law saying that people were capable of making their own medical choices? I don't know. After Obamacare, I'm wondering what my thoughts were at the time on that.
Yeah, it's a good counterpoint for sure, because every ruling has unintended consequences.
Right. So I guess the thought I had was, my follow-up thought to that is, you know what? Maybe if we had a functioning government that was not corrupt and not interested in only allowing two parties to stay in power, and we had at least 5 parties that better represented the entire population of this country, we might not even get any kind of rulings like this at all, and we get something that is a bit more thoughtful on how to protect free speech, which is incredibly important, but also prevent people from being harassed and threatened and so forth. We have a number of different ways set up for you to get in touch with us to provide feedback, ask questions, or just comment in about something we've discussed.
You can hit us up on Twitter or Instagram at untitled_hosts, or shoot an email over to untitled.hosts@gmail.com.
Or get in touch directly with Jesse at jthart.com, or get in touch with me, John, via telepathy.
If you would like to support our work, or are interested in listening to our new after show feed, head over to patreon.com/theUntitledPodcast and take a look at the options we have set up.
Thank you for listening.
We hope you've enjoyed the show.
And we hope to connect with more of you as we continue this journey.
That's a wrap. So I know it may not make much of a difference in general, but with the for the sake of anyone listening, like as we're recording, there are thunderstorms in the area as well, which also tend to be somewhat problematic for the connectivity in an older neighborhood, depending on what happens. So it's not storming, but there's a lot of thunder and lightning, and occasionally that's a problem too.
Gotcha.
I mean, it is raining, but it's not like downpour type thing. So I heard up to... Go ahead.
I was going to say the rain hasn't gotten here yet.
I heard up to talking about the if we had 5 parties and protections of free speech. But
yes.
That's where it cut.
Oh, it was so clever. It was such a, at that point I was like, man, I don't think we meant to end. I was like, it sounded so good. And it was like, he doesn't want to end the show yet. It's not time yet. But it was that good.
I mean, if it fits, I can always pause it there, and then this can all be after show material.
You know what? I love listening to our shows and figuring out what you're gonna do to how you edit them. There's still mystery to me, so
that's fun. I don't intend for it to be that way necessarily, but that is fun if that's a little hidden bonus.
It's fun for me. Yeah. Yeah, I was just saying that if we actually had a government that represented, that properly represented us, and we had.
Are you talking about like the representation of the actual diversity?
Yes, of the population. Yeah, that's why I said like at least 5 parties, and we had what's the opposite of toothless? I know I don't want to say toothy, but the opposite, like anti-corruption laws with fangs and claws. I mean, if we had that in place, and that would be the first step in to have a functioning government that actually worked for the people instead of the lobbyists. Then we wouldn't be worried about the First Amendment ruling that scares the ruling that is intended to protect the First Amendment that scares the hell out of us because it also looks like harassing. It legalizes stalking and harassing.
Yeah, I had the word and then I lost it again. Shoot. I should have just said it when I thought about it, and I would remember it again. Either way, but yes, the other part of it, I think, is something that you all kind of hinted on, but also kind of glossed over. And I know we've talked about it at some point in the past as well, but the mere presence of lobbyists is, in and of itself, something that's just kind of awkward in the way that we approach it. I think lobbyists could absolutely continue to be beneficial, but not in such an unchecked fashion.
Right. I was just gonna say it's I don't remember what was going on because I was a bit young, but I remember where there was a point where it was like there's some I think it was a ruling where corporations were people too, and like it was ridiculous. But there is a reason for corporations to be represented. They are just vastly overrepresented, and maybe they're not the power that they wield. Let me rephrase this: the power that they wield through lobbyist channels is, it's corruption at its finest. And it's going to be problematic until it's stopped.
I don't remember when that happened. So I do vaguely recall the same thing that you're talking about. There are 2 things to me that are problematic. One, the entire concept of corporations being able to be a person in a legal sense from that regard. But two, there aren't truly any kind of financial restrictions on lobbyists that don't have significant loopholes. And so any industry with deep enough pockets just targets enough diversity of diversity of representation to be able to stonewall or pursue anything they want. I know that there are some checks and balances in place as far as the actual dollar amount per. I don't think it's per fiscal year. I don't remember exactly what the breakdown is, but that doesn't really do anything when other gifts and all are not necessarily a part of that reporting.
There's an article called "When Did Companies Become People," and I'll put a link in our notes for it. It's from NPR. Just discusses the it starts out our corporations people. The U.S. Supreme Court says they are, and at least for some purposes. Anyway, I do remember that. So
it seems like that also came into play with the. I don't remember exactly what it was. It was something with Ford Motor Company where there was, I think it was Ford, where there was a vehicle that was prone to fire, and whether or not the company could be held liable criminally for individuals who lost their life to accidents involving that item absent a recall.
So I wanted to make a joke about, was it called the Galaxy S3? but but then I remembered that the bit in Fight Club where Jack is talking to Tyler upon first meeting, and he explains to him the whole algorithm. I don't even think it's an algorithm. It's just a formula for determining whether or not they're gonna the company he works for is going to recall a particular car part or whatever.
I forgot about that, but until you started talking about it. But yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
same.
I mean, it's
same
the same
thing.
Yeah, I could be wrong about the timing on this, but I'm expecting that the Ford issue did happen in the 90s, and that was a direct reference to that issue.
Yeah, if I could even remember the vehicle for sure, it would be easier to kind of pinpoint. But the only reason I even remember it, honestly, is because of the criminology class.
Now I want to do some real-time follow-up, but I can't spell vehicle without looking. Ford vehicle fire recall. Which one was it? Come on, internet, go fast. Oh, well, like the first thing that comes up is a recall for 2020 to 2023 Escape and Maverick.
That's unfortunate for them.
Yeah. You know, when I first heard about recalls, I thought that meant that they would take the whole car back and you got a new car. I didn't. When I was a kid, I thought that, and then as an adult, I was like, oh no, they're just going to replace the part that's broken, which is good.
But and it does depend on the recall. I mean, if
Yeah,
you think
that's
about
true.
food products, the entire product goes back.
Yeah.
So
I was thinking about cars, specifically car recalls, but I think VW had one that is like, we need the whole car back.
probably because I
With their
the emission stuff.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. Like people, well, you hit like
There was an option. I think it was.
Yeah,
I think
it was
it was specifically because they didn't have anything that got close to what they claimed. That if that was actually a big issue for you, you could return the vehicle.
right, and it did, and it was also, there was also something based on like the depreciation of the vehicle, how much money you got. So it was more than just. It wasn't like, oh, here's you brought back a car that's 5 years old. Here's a brand new car. It wasn't quite like that, but it was still a lot of money. It was like top value for the vehicle. Like it wasn't, you weren't getting the blue book trade in value for it. You were getting better than that.
I remember, this would be anecdotal, so I don't know if this is overly accurate, but I do remember someone talking about at one point during that time period, you could actually find on Google Maps a massive lot where it was just nothing but Volkswagens parked that, for all intents and purposes, were abandoned.
Yeah. Did you fall into that category with yours?
I did not. So I think it was limited to the diesel engines.
Oh yes, you're right. You're right.
It may not have been. There might have been some others as well, but it was not something that affected the year model that I had.
Gotcha. Because you had a mid 2000s.
Yeah, well, 2009.
Oh yeah, okay. I guess I don't remember when the generation after yours started. Because that generation started in 2005. Because it was a
Right.
It was a five banger, right? Inline five.
I don't remember if they made. I don't think they made an inline 5 that year. So mine was not anyway. Mine was an inline 4. They might have done.
I know in 2005 I was looking at buying cards, and I was looking at the Jetta, and I know in 2005 that was one of the drivetrain options.
Okay.
Anyway,
I assume you're looking it up.
of course I am. Oh, it's interesting. I don't understand how they've done this on Wikipedia. They have because I'm looking at the Chinese Jetta. That's not what I want. Remember the new bug, and they hated it in Fight Club. Since we're talking about stuff,
Yes.
it was a Jetta with a bug frock on. Like, I like the Jetta. I drove a friend's a few times and quite enjoyed it. It was a 2004, and yeah. But I give you 2010. 2010 was.
2010 was when they changed.
Yeah, that was the next generation. It went from it looks like you had a fifth generation, which was started in 2005, and then the sixth generation was the 2010 model year.
I knew it was close, but I couldn't remember if it was 2010, 2011. I didn't pay that much attention. I just knew what I was looking for was the equivalent of the poor man's Audi, which meant that I wanted the Jetta with the 2.0 turbo, not the non-diesel derivative.
The two, so they had. I knew exactly. There was the 2-liter inline 4 with the turbo turbocharger.
Correct.
And then
that's the one I had.
And then there was one variant of the powertrain that was a inline 5, and it was 2.5 liter.
Yeah, I didn't realize that was an inline 5. For some reason, I was thinking it was a 6-cylinder. But I also did not look that close at it because I knew I did not want the 2.5 engine.
I think it made sense just as far as like all of the surrounding. It's like it's probably easier to put in a fifth cylinder, like a block with 5 cylinders in the same orientation as the 4, considering all the components around it, and then putting in a V6.
Yeah, it certainly makes sense.